So what? Okay, so are we live now? Are we live now? Let's see. Hold on, you guys. Oh, that's YouTube. Okay. Yeah, here we go. We're live now, I think. Yeah, we're live now. Okay, we're live now. Can you see us, Marquita, now? Oh, I hope she can see. All right, we here, you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, we're on now. Okay. All right, so live. I'm Gerald. I got my friends, some of the best adults that I know, and we're talking about maturity and adulthood. Guys, so we are live. Wait. I'm turning all my microphones off so I can just be here. All right. All right, so what is starting out like what is maturity, you guys? What is maturity, and how does society and culture and individual factors affect our understanding of maturity? What's required to be mature, an adult? Anybody can start. Well, go ahead. Go ahead, Lisa.
I saw Kareem's voice start to go, so.
Go ahead, Kareem.
Well, I can't see. Okay. Yeah, I usually don't do this on my phone. That's why. But no. I mean, let me just listen for a while. Can you hear me? You can hear me now, right?
Yeah. We can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, because I don't see my picture or nothing.
Right.
I was trying to allow video, but I don't think it's. I don't even see.
Yeah. So like I think being an adult is when I can take care of myself. You know, when I'm fully self-supporting, and that's interesting because it's not just money, right? It's like emotionally and psychologically and all that. I can take care of myself, and I'm not a burden on anybody else. That's a sign of being mature, you know. And I think that growing up, you know, I was not really prepared for adulthood. You know, I just woke up and I was supposed to be an adult, and I was pretending a lot, you know, that I knew what to do, and I didn't really know what to do. And one of the things that helped me mature were like some of the mistakes that I made growing up, you know, that forced me to make changes, you know. I don't know what other people think about that. Do you feel like you were ready to be an adult when?
Look, when you asked me to come on here, I was like, what do I know about being an adult? Because the way I see myself, I still feel like I'm faking it sometimes. Like, I can't believe all the like dish towels and the washcloths are mine. You know, like some of the stuff is sometimes the mentality like hasn't really caught up with my actions yet. And when I think about maturity and I think about, you know, what it's becoming for me, because truth be told, I do a damn good job at adulting most of the time. I feel like I feel responsible, you know, for myself and others. But but the dialogue sometimes is like, it's just going through the motions. And so when you stop and think about it, I was stopping and thinking about it. That's why I asked you, like, what are we going to be talking about? Because I had no idea, like, what to expect, even though I've watched I watch all your stuff. So
thank you.
and it was a real honor, to be asked and to be thought of. And there was another segment you did, and I really enjoyed that as well, the marriage one and stuff. But for me, the maturity aspect is starting to really come into the forefront of my mind, because now I'm starting to ask different questions. So it's the questions and the answers that have changed for me that really let me know I'm maturing. Because what is important to me, some of the healing that I need or want or crave is a little bit different now. And that's where I know that maturity is happening, because some of the things that matter now are different, such as my peace, or slowing down, and just because the grind can really just take a lot out of you, and slowing down when I can, and what that looks like, even just internally, and just like, even in the rat race, being able to slow down a little bit. And so, like, maturity for me is just paying attention to what's going on sometimes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. What are some other voices about this? What do you guys think about this whole? How did like I thought a lot for a long time. Maturity was like pretending to be mature. Doing what I saw other people doing. And without really any real understanding of what was really required to be mature. It was like an act. It was like, a guess. So I'm wondering how other people felt about that. And what about the period of transitioning to adulthood? Like, let's say from 18 to 29 years old, what were you like? What was life like for you? That's usually marked by a period of instability, but what was life for you between 18 and 29, let's say, an emerging adult?
Mm.
You said 18.
Between 18 and 29, as an emerging adult, what was life like for you at that point?
Chaotic.
Say more, Kareem.
It was very chaotic for me because I went to college, football.
You're kind of breaking up
college.
a little bit.
I dropped out. And I just kind of wandered around kind of aimlessly during that time period, I worked, I partied a lot. I wasn't very mature at the time, like I didn't have any children or anything like that, but I never gave much thought to I wasn't really focused on life as an adult, I was just doing what I wanted to do. And, whatever that happened to be, having a good time. Just I definitely wasn't focused on any kind of plan or anything like that. Like I said, I just wandered, during that time period. And I didn't do a great job of taking care of myself either, So I was very immature I did what felt good, and that's what kind of led me, It was like whatever felt good, that's what I did, And that's not a sign of maturity, That's where I was.
I think we all do the best we can, right? That was as during that period of time, that was as mature as I could be, right? Based on what I knew, my experience and stuff like that. you know. And you said something, Kareem, that's interesting. Like I think one of the signs of maturity is having some sort of plan, right?
Mhm.
That's a sign. We could say that that's a sign of, because when you're young, you don't think you need a plan. You don't think you really, I can do it all. That it's okay, right? I don't even know what to expect, really. I obviously like the freedom of being an adult, or what I thought was the freedom of being an adult, but I didn't necessarily like the responsibility that came with that. I didn't really embrace that part too well. Um, what kind of pressure did you feel at that? Because society exerts some pressure on you to get your stuff together, right? What kind of pressure did you feel? Were your parents saying anything to you? Was society giving you any kind of nudge? Were you, what was going on at that time?
Well, when you're young, well, I was still young at the time, so yeah, it was some pressure from my family, but I didn't put any pressure on myself. It was, but at the same time, I also knew that I was way off course. I knew I was way off course because I did, when I look back, I did have a plan. I did go to college for a reason, and I just never followed through with the plan that I had at that time. It just, I mean, I was gonna say it didn't change on its own. I just followed different paths.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know.
How did your parents prepare you for this? Did they talk to you about it or anything like that? Just anybody?
Doing, you said 18 to 29.
Yeah, about 18 to 29.
Yeah. So there was a different, what I said, like an 11-year span. So, um, during that time, I wasn't making really good decisions. In some ways I was, like Kareem, I made a commitment to go to college, and then I started to lose my way. Like I didn't realize, like I was making decisions, but I didn't realize the actions I needed to take to see those things come to fruition. And I kept getting distracted and sidetracked, and then at different moments, my mother put pressure on me. And then I realized I started putting pressure on myself because my goals for my life, I had ambitions, I had goals, and I wanted to achieve. And um, I think education was a big part of that. I mean, she invested in me going to school and not college. She just wanted me to graduate from high school. But, I think the experiences I had in school and the emphasis she put on that, it just led me to set goals and ambitions for myself. And so I started to put pressure on myself to do better and to make better choices. And it just evolved. I think that in terms of preparation, it was just the values she instilled in me about getting an education and doing well in school. And, but over time I just started to pick up things, and I started to move, set goals that my family didn't really have, but I had for myself. So yeah, so I think it was a combination of factors. But society, it's funny because the messages you get, as I don't know, as an African American male, or just African American male, from my perspective, I don't know if all the messages we get from society are positive, and they could lead us astray. And that's, like being responsible, being mature is getting a credit card, for example,
Mm-hmm.
getting in relationship, and being intimate, physically intimate. Nothing about the emotional intimacy piece. So the messages I was getting from society and from the people I looked up to, because my father died when I was 16. So there was a lot of things that, there was a lot of conversations I didn't have with my dad. So, and I remember being angry. And then I started to gravitate to people who I thought had the life, but it was mostly external. It wasn't nothing about character. It was nothing about being committed or being responsible and caring about another person. Um, and it was just about looking good and stuff. So it was like really shallow values. And then, so I had to work through that to realize that that wasn't, you know, um, the way I wanted to live. And, but it took, it took a process, coming to believe. And then,
That that's kind of
yeah.
what I was talking about, like in my life, pretending that I was an adult, right?
Hmm.
I thought that access to women made me an adult. I thought that um, even using substances made me an adult. I saw other men around me doing that kind of stuff, and that's what I did to get some acceptance among them. I didn't have, you know, I wanted to ask you guys during this period, 18 to 29, what kind of did you have a mentor? What was your support system like?
Mhm.
Uh, were you even concerned with personal growth? And you kind of mentioned, Richard, that you didn't really understand that, and nor did I, right? I didn't really have any mentors. I didn't really trust people that much because of some of the things that had happened to me in childhood, and I thought one of the ways that I defended against um, not trusting people was I thought I knew everything. I thought I could figure it out by myself, and I was basically just guessing, you know. Um, so what about emotional intelligence as we move forward in life? When did that start to become interesting to you or something that you thought was important? Self-awareness.
Mhm.
For me, years ago, a few years, I don't know, it was about 10 years ago or 12, I don't know. It was a few years ago. I remember getting this book, um, Emotional Intelligence. I remember Emotional Intelligence, and I remember reading it. And it was interesting, but I don't even know if I finished the book. I read maybe half of it, but applying it, the ideas were difficult for me. I don't even think I could really comprehend it, but today, emotional intelligence is very important to me. I'm very intrigued by it, and and I'm learn as much as I can, and about it because I want to respond better in terms, I want to develop more emotional intelligence, and so yeah, yeah. So I think, and then life experiences, stuff shows up and you notice how you respond to things and you say, and I look at situations and how I responded to it. I think, I would have liked to dealt with that better. And then things are revealed through conversations, talking to people. They say, oh, well, emotional intelligence, basically, it points to that, but I
Mm,
think more recently, I think about 4 years ago, I realized that I had to stop putting expectations on other people to take care of me emotionally. And, I had to learn how to accept responsibility for, because it's one thing, like, and I think you alluded to this, Gerald, accepting responsibility for my life, like being an adult, buying a house, being, having a job, taking care of myself and all that. But then there's another thing about that emotional maturity and that emotional intelligence. And that I think that's the thing that, like, I think 4 years ago I really started to realize that, like, some of these things I get upset about or bother me is really about me, even though people may be making decisions or doing things or for whatever reason. I needed to learn how to, deal with my own emotions around that, and I'm still dealing with it. And I'm
I
still
like that.
learning.
I'm sorry, Richard. Good to see you, Richard, by the way. Haven't seen you in a while. Hey, so, I was just thinking about that term and how that term is even coined, as of lately, because so the umbrella, the maturity is the higher level, umbrella. And then emotional, um, that intelligence, that is a term I didn't even know until in the recent past, maybe the last 5 years or so. But what did we used to call it? Getting in touch with your emotions or maturing or becoming aware, like all these, that term is coined now in that way. And it's more specific in that subcategory under maturity. And I like that you looped all that in. And but for me, that term made me even feel inadequate when I learned about it. Like it was somebody newer, because we have all these like newer, modern, younger. I learn a lot from the younger people in society in my life. Like I learn a lot from, of course, I've always learned from my elders, but learning from the more the just the younger generation, they have so much to offer as far as that emotional intelligence. And I didn't even know about that term for quite some time. And you know, you've moved on from that time from 18 to 29, but I just kind of wanted to say that
Mhm.
that time, I feel like there's actually two lifetimes in that time for me. And Richard kind of pointed out like that's 11 years. And I wasn't prepared because emotionally I was 12 years old until I was about 32, you know? And
Mhm.
so, yes, by law and legally, I became of age and an adult, but man, I was not prepared. And I had really good examples of what adults look like in that emotional intelligence, or taking care of the emotional aspect wasn't really important. Like in the 80s or in the 90s and growing up and things, but I had really good examples of what adulting looked like. You know, my mom was a fantastic hard worker and things, but there was another side of the coin. You know, I had a mother and father that weren't married, and so there was one side was the fast life and one side was the hardworking adulthood. So of course the easier, softer route looked or the fast life looked like the easier, softer route, right? The going to work and the grind looked more difficult, even though it ended up to be more rewarding and more respectable. But I had great examples and great, the plan that you talk about might have been missing, but I already had decided before I was 18 that I was an adult. So
Mhm.
with that, I had decided before I was 18 that I already was an adult. And so that made it really hard to parent me because I was already grown. So I was unable to be parented in certain ways that that were my own choices. My parents surely tried. And so now I know, and now I, go to my parents, but that plan of execution could not have been put in place because I already made the decision to do what I wanted to do, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I grew up in an alcoholic household, right? And I was I was hit as a child, right? So that made me leery of adults. I wasn't really trying to be around adults because they could lash out at me. But the other thing that did is that made me externally motivated, right? It meant that I was keyed into things outside of myself, people, places, that sort of thing. And I wanted to fit in. I just tried to be like a chameleon, right? So people would leave me alone. And so I wouldn't get bullied. And so that I was trying to be a man among men, and you did that through like real macho acts, hyper masculinity, right?
Mm.
Conquest, drugs, uh being kind of half crazy, a little bit. I wasn't a bad dude. I was kind of a weak dude that wanted to be strong. I just kind of performed at this thing until I didn't work. And I had some success with it, but it failed. And that forced me to change things around, Didn't have much support, didn't think I needed it, came up in that kind of male socialization where we can figure it out on our own, we can do it all by ourselves, we don't need help. If I felt like it was kind of a sign of vulnerability if I had to ask a question about anything. And that really kind of set me back around being an adult. I had to unlearn some things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then that emotional intelligence piece, I knew that I was emotionally in pain, but I didn't really know how to deal with those emotions other than ways in which I was acting out and making other people feel like I felt, blaming other people for my situation, trying to change other people, that kind of thing. And it wasn't until later that I learned a different way to do that, right? I'm still learning emotional in, intelligence. And what about self-care? What about that? What role does that play for you in being an adult now, right? When did you learn that you needed to take care of yourself differently than you did?
You know, I'm kind of a late bloomer in that department as far as, you know, things that I've learned. So I would say, you know, 35, you know, 35 to really
Me
like
too.
learn to what self-care was. And I'm not talking about going to the nail shop. I'm not talking about going and get a massage, although those are forms of self-care. Been doing that for quite some time. The self-care that really has helped me improve is like meditation, you know, staying in, just really getting in tune with what my body and my mind need at the time and my spirit. And it comes in all these different forms, the bath, you know, the hot bath, like all these forms of meditation that help me lead to meditation. And it's not something that I'm consistent with, but like all these different things that show up, you know, the cooking for myself, you know, eating better and doing things that sometimes I don't want to do. But when it really became apparent to me, if I had to put a number on it, you know, it's probably, you know, over 10 years ago now. But it didn't happen for a long time. And I see the younger generation doing a lot of it. And I'm just so proud of that. And I've referenced this before because I have adult children and I know a lot of young women that man, they're doing the self-care a lot younger, and it's really nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, anybody else? What you thinking about self-care? When did you realize you needed to that was an issue? That was something you needed to do?
I think for me is when I got into recovery, 12-step recovery. You know, like I started to remember my first year or so, and I moved out of my mom's house. I think I had about 6 months clean, and I started buying cookbooks and figuring out how to cook, and I was exercising and doing all these things, and you know, and reading and learning more. And so I think as I continued to um, you know, be in recovery, more and more was revealed. And I just started taking, you know, taking steps to, um, yeah, take better care of myself. And each stage of my life, it means something different.
Hmm.
You know, like at this stage of my life, and I think you was talking about, mentioned that, Lisa, you know, I take, as I know my emotional needs need to be met. I know I need to recognize those triggers, those times where I feel like I'm stressed. And I know because I'll just, you know, for example, I might just want to come home and sit in front of the TV and binge watch Netflix or something. I know I haven't processed whatever stress I've been going through, or I'm reacting emotionally to things, you know, in my environment, you know, whether it's my son or the students I teach or whatever, like, um, you know, I just react to things, you know. So I know, you know, so it's ongoing, but I think at different stages, it's evolved to where it is today. That like it really emotional, taking care of my emotional needs, taking care of my, making sure I'm getting, I'm relieving stress, whether it's through working out, meditation, yoga, doing things that really help me, spending time in nature. You know, all those are things that I find I do now to take better care of myself.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a trip coming up in an alcoholic household because we had a lot of chaos and confusion in the house. And so I didn't get a lot of examples on how to like manage my time. My house was really too unsafe for me to do homework.
Mm.
I didn't really trust my parents. And it's, they did the best that they could, but our household wasn't very emotionally intelligent. And so you're only as good in relationships as the relationships you've been in. You're only as good, I think, at being an adult as the adults that you've been around. And there were some things that my parents just didn't show me, right? And I'm not blaming them for that, right? But I'm just saying that it made it difficult. Um, it just made it difficult for me to make the transition from adolescence to adulthood, you know. Um, Setting priorities, and then because because well, I was trying to change other people. I was feeling burnt out and in a lot of pain and stuff like that. If you want to really see some insanity, try to change things that you can't change. Um, so anyway, I really, and I had to, I like you said, Richard, I didn't really start becoming an adult until I got into recovery, I think. Not really, until I had to go to treatment, and then I got into recovery, and that really helped me, because I didn't really have any examples of what it was that I really needed in my life prior to that. Um, but anyway, um, what let's talk about financial literacy and independence. When did you feel like you became independent from your parents?
Shit. I feel a little unconventional with that because, like I said, I already, I had gotten myself in trouble as a teenager. And although I was under my mom's roof and we came up with a plan to attack the legal action and go on independent studies, get a job, pay back your fines, and make yourself right with the law, right? Because I had got into some trouble maybe about 16 years old, and she helped me get a job, and that's when it started as far as what I thought was financial independence. Little did I know of all the household expenses and all of the clothing expenses. I had such a limited view of what I thought financial independence meant as a teenager and even into my 20s, because all the expenses that go into running a household and taking care of people. I mean, the simple food aspect, and gas and all that stuff, and bridge toll, and just little things, little expenses you didn't, you never even thought of. And so I would say I would like to think I became independent, at a younger age, younger than I became an adult as far as 18, but I could see that didn't really happen until I decided to grow up. I decided to finally grow up about 28 years old,
Mhm.
when I also um, decided to get into recovery, into the 12-step program.
Mhm.
And I suffered from a disease of addiction that I didn't know I had. I was undiagnosed for so long, till about 28 years old, and is when I realized that that's what it was, and I was able to do something about it. So all that time I was out there, running amok, but really trying to be an adult, and yeah, the financial aspect is, something I take very serious because it gives me a lot of peace and security, you know, nowadays.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting, right? At at 21 years old, I was a property owner, right? And I thought that was being an adult. You couldn't tell me nothing. I was winning the rat race, but I was still a rat, right? And again, I'm doing what I think makes one an adult, but it really didn't. And in my family, we had financial failure because of the alcoholism. My parents both worked. We weren't broke, but we just had unmanageability. And I picked up some of that along the way, right? So whatever you run from, you run to. So the same thing I was running from, I ran right into, right? Um, and so it has, it really affected my life, right? It really changed. I had some real traumatic things happen. That was one of the things, to have property and then lose it, money, property, and prestige. That really affected me in some ways, right? I had to learn, right? And I thought I knew everything, but I really didn't. And that's all part of what made me and makes me an adult today, are some of those experiences. What lessons are we learning about financial literacy right now?
I know there's different perspectives, about financial freedom and how to um, attain financial freedom or financial intelligence or whatever. And so, um, and I don't know, it's like with other things. Like I just try to, some things don't necessarily work for me, but yeah, I'm still figuring it out. I was just I noticed a book. They have a Netflix special on this guy has this model, but I think overall, look, what I found is um, just being able to, be responsible, like be of service to others. Service is the rent we pay, and I found that with that idea, um, my needs has always been taken care of, and then making decisions, as I, got jobs and stuff, getting out of debt, and at least be trying to do the right thing, be, trying to do the right thing, making, setting goals for myself, financial goals, rather like, the biggest thing for me was getting out of debt and then being more responsible around my money, you know, um, getting rid of all my credit cards and stuff. But, I had, I grew up and my father was alcoholic. My mother was probably a debtor, and I think she did that because, she was trying to make ends meet and send my sister out of school. But, like you said, Joe, a lot of those things I picked up on. And when I got my first credit card, I thought, man, I thought that was like free money. I know you had to pay it back with interest, So I went through that a number of times, and, having to restart financially a number of times. And so I just, over time, I just learned, I tried to learn from my mistakes. And it was humbling. But at the same token, it was a lot of freedom because it's like, okay, well, I had no credit card, so I had to worry about, you know, overcharging them and stuff. And so, and then eventually I got them back. And once I started to build my credit, and then I got to a point where I didn't really feel like that need to use them as much, and I was able to be in a position where I was able to manage it. But I'm still learning. I think with anything, like with the emotional, all these different topics that you're talking about, like I think over time, as we have these experiences, we evolve and grow. And I think that's the key theme for me in terms of maturity and growing up is to continue to be willing to learn, continue to be open, continue to strive to understand, find out what works for me and where I need to improve in. And I think that's been key for me, but that probably doesn't work for everybody. But for me, that's been my experience is like continue to be willing to learn and grow. Um, and that's helped me.
Mhm.
So,
There-
Kareem,
Yeah.
you got a little bit, of a handle on financial stuff. How did you learn that?
A lot of trial and error, you know, and I had a desire to, like a lot of things I would read about financial freedom, and it's like a whole lot of things inspire me to do better,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't always, I'm not always where I want to be, but I
Mm-hmm.
know where I have a good idea of where I want to go. And just like anything else, it's like it became like a hobby of mine, It's something that I really liked. I put a lot of time into it, read a lot of books, did a lot of research online, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I just, I had like I said, I knew what I wanted. I knew what the type of person that I wanted to be. I knew, that it would take, a lot of effort on my part to do that,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And it was just like learning a new discipline, it's like you got to put a lot of time and effort into it, and that's, I'm the type of person that I kind of I dive into things,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I spend and I just become obsessed with things,
Mm-hmm.
um, and and then and then the flip side of that is I do that to a lot of different things,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so I sometimes I find myself I don't know, I don't know if I get bored with one aspect and then I go into another aspect of this of
Mm-hmm.
a similar type of thing, just so I yeah, it's weird. It's one of my the things about me that, it kind of still baffles me to this day. It's like I kind of I lose focus, but
Mm-hmm.
but in the process I do I learn a lot of different things,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, well, okay, what's the best bit of financial advice you ever got?
Save your money.
Huh? Huh?
Save your money.
Save your money? What was the best bit? What's the best bit you ever got?
Live within your means.
Woo, yeah.
Live below your means.
Woo, yeah.
Live below your means is the best advice I ever got.
I remember a guy named Art Lane. He's not here anymore. He said if you don't manage your character defects, there will never be enough money.
Mhm.
There will never be enough money. He said that over 15 years ago, and I have never forgot that. And that is absolutely true, right?
Mm.
And because if I don't do that, I can't live within my means and I can't save my money. Oh my goodness, what a good piece of advice that was for me, right? And like all my problems, well, many of my problems stem from my emotional issues.
Mhm.
I spend emotionally. I
Mhm.
spend to make me feel better. I didn't know that that was a part of addiction, right? I thought it was just the substance use, but it's any behavior that is mood altering, habit forming with negative consequences. I do spend money to get high. I know you guys don't do that.
There's a lot of, when you bring up finances, there's a lot of emotions and thoughts behind what goes in there. There's a lot of mindsets that I grew up with that my mother and I will laugh about. She said something. We were on a cruise a couple months ago and she was telling somebody she was broke. We grew up poor. And I was like, stop saying that. We laugh about it now because, and mind you, she, had the house in Danville and Alamo and I was, and that's the mindset. So there's so many mindsets that culturally, um, that's passed on to us, right? So if we could talk about that aspect of what we think our money situation is, not what it actually is. And
Mhm.
so, like I said, we joke about it now because we were like, my son and I were like, you are not broke. Stop saying that, or poor, or, and yes, you know, it's passed on. I'll still go to the clearance, you know, hit Macy's, go right to the clearance, hit, you know, wherever I'm at and go right to the clearance, because it's that mindset that I still don't think I have enough, or I still don't think, or I need to pirate and just hold on to everything that I do have, all the emotions, because of the discipline, you know, that Kareem talks about, that goes into saving it all. It just didn't happen. There's a lot of dedication and self-discipline that goes into getting up and going to work every day, let alone saving what you get or living within your means. Or for me, that stuff just doesn't do it for me anymore. I've had a lot of hard-won experiences where buying all the shit or buying all the whatever it is, and I'll still do it. I'll still buy the shoes and then I just go return them because I get them. And if I don't love it, and that's where the maturity aspect comes in for me. It's like, if it doesn't do something for me, because I can only wear one pair of shoes at a time. Like, and I still love my shoes. I still love my purses. I still love different things that others, you know, and we all have our things. They all might not be the same thing, but we all have our things. And but like the whole mindset and the emotions and the thoughts that go behind having money, spending money, because you will never know what I have in my savings based on even just what I'm wearing, or it seems like the more money we get, the more poor we look, or I don't know. It's just, and maturity has set in to where it's less flashy. It's less out in the open. It's more of a personal journey. It's become a personal journey. You know, before it was like the BMW and different things, you know. My husband had a BMW when I met him, and just things have evolved even in the last 12 years, individually and, you know, as a partnership. So,
so that brings me to my next question. Like, how are you different about finances and money than your partner? Because everybody here is married, right? How are you different? There's a big difference between me and my wife around money. My wife is a super saver. We are very different in that way. Finances. uh, uh, so can you talk a little bit about how you're different than your partner around money?
you know, one thing is, for me, I'm very fortunate. Him and I have a lot of the same beliefs around money, and it's very beneficial. It takes a worry away, that I don't have any financial fears when it comes to him. Like, you know, my husband used to like to bet on football, right? And so I come from a father that is a very big gambler, right? And so I had fears around that because I never saw somebody gamble in a responsible way until I met my husband. And so I used to say, like, I didn't really step in his lane too much, but it brought up a lot of fear to where I'd ask him, like, you know, how much you betting, or, you know, and then I kind of laid off. But once I saw that he was responsible with his money, even when it came to gambling, it reassured me, and it let me have more confidence in that area. And so over time, I've learned he'll tell me, you know, I don't spend money abnormally. Like, I don't buy things, like, what I do is not normal. And so please, because I used to get into a place where I wouldn't spend money. He said, please go do what you need to do. Buy whatever you want to buy. Don't do what I do. But when it comes to the mentality and money and how we view it, it's very similar. So therefore it's comforting because we're both responsible with it, you know?
Yeah, it helps. It helps. It really does help. Kareem, how you different from your wife with money?
Like, my wife and I, we pretty much have the same philosophy when it comes to money. We're not overly extravagant or spending a whole lot of money on anything in particular, as far as things, you know. Now, I buy her nice. It's funny. I buy her nice things that I wouldn't buy myself, or expensive things. But and she buys me things that I wouldn't buy myself.
Mhm.
It's like she buys me things that I wouldn't buy. I mean, it's strange because
Mhm.
I don't know. I guess I'm kind of cheap. Like I want to buy 2 pairs of shoes for $100 if possible. I mean, as far as anything that's on clearance. I wear the same jeans over and over. Even though I got a whole bunch of them in my closet. I wear the same few things. So my wife has a closet full of things. She likes things more than I do. I could care less about things. We both value experiences though.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we like to travel. So I guess we pretty much evenly yoked as far as the way, our philosophy on money and the things we like to do. So it's nobody steering the ship,
Mhm.
off course, and like I said, we live well below our means, and we okay with it, and I'm just really fortunate because I know, other people who just, somebody wants to make it and the other person wants to spend it,
Mhm.
and it just doesn't work like that. And so I'm just fortunate to not have that issue because, it's like there's no worries about that at all. And I know that's, that could be, I know a lot of people who, that's not the case for. And I'm just grateful that I'm not one of them.
Yeah, yeah. My wife and I are interesting, right? Like my wife sits down every month and goes through every penny that she has. Every penny. She's responsible. Me, I just kind of go by feel, but I live well below my means. But it's not important to me to go through, the whole thing like that every month. But I don't spend a lot of money. I don't. I don't. I really live within my means, right? Um, but we're just different in that way. I like what you had to say, Kareem. My wife likes experiences too. She likes to travel, and she would rather do that than buy some of the other things. She's in New York now, and so yeah. And I like to travel also. So I found out, from not traveling, that I really like to travel too, and I would rather do the same thing. Um, but this whole, the whole money issue. Um, I've had ups and downs with money. Early in my life, I was real successful, lost everything. Then now I'm coming back, and now I'm more successful with money now than probably ever before. And so you just learn, right? It's part of being an adult, right? It doesn't, things come and go. That's part of understanding what it means to be an adult, you know. Um, there's no like one time fix for being an adult. You got to do this over and over and over again. Right? The bills don't stop coming in, right? Um, what about relationships and intimacy in adulthood? What about that topic? Healthy connections. When did you realize that was important? I didn't really get that one until I got to recovery.
Yeah, it's like you learn along the way once you evaluate. It's always hindsight, once you
Right.
once you evaluate that half the things that you had in as far as in terms of people and relationships, when you realize that it a parody of love, they're shams, it was all based in physical or just all the things that the soul will start to crave what it needs, and then
Hmm.
you like, okay, the truth and honesty and letting people see you, letting people get to know you, and being real and being okay with it not going the way you think it should too. Like, it's okay to not be liked, and I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and like, but just still trying to be true to yourself. And what I mean by that is open-minded, right? Being flexible for me, it's what works for me. But still steadfast in trying to accomplish what feels good for me. But keeping the other person in mind too. It's not just so one-sided anymore. I used to be the kind of gal like my way or the highway. Turn people into doormats, more like intimate relationships with men. Until, and then you have no respect for them. It was just all sick and twisted. And I didn't really realize that until you start getting in healthier and healthier and healthier relationships for me. And the intimacy, though, that comes with a lot of the friendships I have in my life, as far as even with my family, different friendships that I have in my family, relationships, intimate relationships. And then just being honest in them, like it's like, I think there was a segment done a couple years back by you. I'm not sure if this is when COVID happened and you were doing these classes in the morning. Anyway, you were talking about being honest in your marriage and being honest and like, what do you have withheld from your partner? And you had asked some questions that I was able to ask myself. And it was so reassuring to know that I had been honest with him about everything. And I'm not talking about just like, oh, I spent $40 at the grocery store. No, like the honesty of like, it hurt my feelings when, you did this. I'm still really, I'm not very good at communicating. I still do the flight or fight, I'm still like, I'm not the best communicator. And I still view the world a lot in the terms of defensiveness. I'm still, in protection mode. So being honest with him and him allowing that is like, just being honest with my thoughts, and knowing that I'm going to be accepted as I am. So I guess that's where like the value of the intimacy is for me.
Oh man, I had so many problems with honesty because of my emotional condition, right? And I was thinking about this today, right? Like in my earlier relationships, I would be dishonest because I would withhold information to try to avoid conflict because of the kinds of conflict that I witnessed as a child and some of the stuff that I went through. So I would rationalize in my head that I was keeping the peace by not telling the truth about how I felt. And I would agree to a lot of things that I didn't really agree with, only to feel resentful and to try to avoid conflict, and which ultimately led to a type of betrayal of my partner and myself, really. Right. And then I would try to, I'd also be dishonest to try to preserve my image. Like I knew what I was doing. Right. Like I'm an adult in this situation. I try to pretend like I was just pretending, but I wasn't able to say that. Right. That I don't really know what I'm doing. Right. And then I would be dishonest for personal gain, because I wanted something from you. And like, I don't feel that, well, I didn't have the same relationships with women that I had with men. I would just tell women anything in a way that I wouldn't do with men prior to coming into this realization. My word didn't mean a thing to a woman. The relationship would be open for me and closed for her. Right. And then I always had this real intense fear of rejection and abandonment. So in these situations, I would just be dishonest. And that's a short-term kind of strategy that actually does work for the short term. And then in the long term, everything just blew up. And that all had to do with my emotional condition at the time. you know, and having that happen to me is the thing that led me to be an adult. That's how I grew up. Oh God, the wreckage. Oh man. So what is it, you know, like what does it mean to be intimate with somebody? Is that just sexual?
Not at this age, no.
Say more about that. Say more about that, Kareem.
No, you know, yeah, I mean, it has very, I mean, it doesn't have much to do with sex, you know. The intimacy is that trust and, you know, I mean, it's more important to be together than it is to be than to be together. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
As far, I mean, like I really like enjoy spending time with my wife. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and not necessarily. I mean, I'm not saying not in a sexual way. You know,
Right.
but I'm not saying that that's a good thing as well. But
Right.
I really, it doesn't have to be that. You know,
Right.
whereas when I was younger, that's what it had to be. You know, it's like that was what I was after, and I didn't really care for all the rest of the parts of the relationship. I was there for the relations, not the ship. You know,
I'm laughing because I'm identifying, Kareem.
you know,
That,
and now it's like, you know, I really enjoy the whole relationship. You know, just
Right.
I mean, me and my wife, we could just hang out for, you know, if we didn't have anything else to do together, doing anything for days, and I don't feel like I'm missing anything anywhere else, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And this is like, you know, and this when I, you know, just like during this conversation, as we talk and as I hear people share and as I share, you know, I realize, you know, how my life has just gone full circle. You know, it's
Yeah.
gone full circle, man. And you know, I'm not the person that I used to be. You know, in a whole lot of different ways. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially you know, emotionally. I mean, it's like I actually care about how other people feel. You know, like you know, it
Yeah.
was a time in my life where you know I was the center of the universe, and you know, God damn it, get over it. You know, but
Yeah.
at this point, man, it's like I really I don't want to be the I don't have to make the waves. You know what I'm saying? I just want to roll with them. You know,
Yeah.
at this
Yeah.
point in my life. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. There was I'm gonna follow up on what you were saying. See, there was a point in my life where emotionally I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And the sexual aspect of a relationship with a woman was how I was um regulating myself. Right? If we were having sex, we were cool. If we weren't having sex, we weren't cool. I didn't have any of the other stuff, like the honesty, the open-mindedness, the willingness, the commitment to the relationship that I needed, the integrity, those kinds of things that make a relationship go. I didn't have that part. It was just straight sexual, right? Because and in that sense, I was using a relationship addictively. I didn't know how to be any other way in it, right? I'm coming out of a couple of real macho traditions, right? And and I come out of a family, we don't talk about feelings, don't talk to me about nothing. And it was just, are we having sex or not? And that's how I know if I'm okay or not, right? And that is kind of a very poor way to live. There's a lot more to relationships than that. And I didn't know that until later in life,
Mhm.
you know. And then here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. Is intimacy limited to just the opposite sex? You see, because if you if you believe that intimacy is just physical, then you can't you're leaving a lot of good aspects of relationship on the table with men, right? I thought I had a problem with women. I didn't have a problem with women. I had a problem with men. I didn't have any men in my life that I could really talk to about what it means to be a man.
Right.
How do you deal with feeling insecure? How do you deal with feeling inadequate? That didn't come until after I got in recovery, that I started seeing men talking about those kinds of feelings. And that helped me figure out that I also had those kinds of needs. Putting too much pressure on my female partners to be everything. Wives, girlfriends, psychiatrists or psychologists, goddamn sponsor, cook, the maid, sex object, all that. I didn't even know. So we can a part of being an adult, I think, is strengthening the understanding that intimacy exists outside of sex, and understanding intimacy exists between men and women and men and men and women and women. We need people to talk to. We need people to show us how to do what we're trying to do, or we may not be able to figure it out on our own.
That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Huge.
Part of being an adult too is having stable relationships, right? Stability, long-term friendships, long-term relationships, not just with women, long-term.
I mean, does this go without saying? I'm going to just, because I'm just wanting to be very literal. I can do none of those things without having intimacy with self first.
Yeah.
Like I try, me personally, I don't know
Yeah.
about it, but for me personally, like I tried, like that was always the forceful moment for me. That was always me forcing that square peg in the round hole thing. Like I was always trying to force something. And actually, intimacy is so much more organic and effortless. Yes, I mean, yes, I do need to put some energy in it, but I was always trying to force an intimacy because I had the wrong people picked out, maybe, that I surrounded myself with, instead of like, it's more effortless when it's supposed to be. Right. And that's friendships too. Yes, I do need to talk about the hard things, like you don't respond to me, or you said you were going to be here at this time. Like, the things that, plague the the defects and all that, the human faults. Yes, we still need to talk about those. And it hurt my feelings when, type stuff. But like, I didn't know I can even have, it's all about relationships to me. Relationships with food, relationships with money, relationships with sex. It's all the relationships. And it like starts with me, which I didn't know for a very long time. I was always looking externally, and and it really just was, it all started here. And not like self-sufficiency. Like I still needed help from the outside.
Right.
But like, really needed to fix here, and still am. I'm still like that work in progress, but like still working on in here so that I can connect with you. Like,
So you bringing up a real interesting point. So I think it's safe to say that being mature and being an adult means, on some level, taking responsibility for one's emotional life. Right? Because prior to me doing that, I was only concerned with the surface of things, like how something looked or how it shined or that, and once the shine wears off, then what do you have? Right? Then I'm ready to discard that and move to the next thing, right? And so being an adult means that, yeah, we understand that the shine is going to wear off, and I got to be concerned with something other than just the surface of it, the bling bling, right? And and that was a hard lesson for me to learn. I'm still learning that lesson, right? And how important how important is having good relationships to you now? How important is it to you?
You know, it's so important to me that I'd almost rather sever the relationship and be by myself if it can't be wholesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you guys are saying it, right? That you value relationships at this point, right? I had to learn how to use people rather than things to make myself feel better. I had to learn how to turn to people to help me calm down and regulate myself. Because when I don't turn to people, when I don't use the people around me to do that, I'm I'm basically involving myself in some sort of self-soothing ritual that fails me at some point. You know, if I'm spending money, well, I get a hit and then I'm feeling bad again. If I use a drug, I get a hit and I'm feeling bad again. I use sex, I get a hit, I'm feeling bad again. But when I talk to people about what it is that's actually going on with me and we share the intimacy, I actually see I'm not the only one going through that. Two, that other people go through it and know how to go through it. Um, and then I just feel more connected, and that kind of brings me down and lets me get through without making my situation worse. So yeah, I think that's one of the hallmarks of adulthood is realizing how important relationships actually are. Right? Um, what about life skills like critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, adaptability? What about that stuff?
That's a lot.
Yeah. Hard to do that if I don't have emotional intelligence. Right? It's hard. You know, like one of the things I noticed is that, I used to think I had to solve all the problems, right? And now imagine not knowing what you're doing and thinking you need to solve all the problems. Imagine that, right? That's not a good combination, right? Imagine making unilateral decisions in a group. I'm just going to decide for the group what's best for the group, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm pretending that I know what I'm doing. Imagine that for a second. That's the way I lived for a long time, right?
Yeah.
You know, the word collaboration, that wasn't a part of my vocabulary. And me, like you said, at least it was my way or the highway.
It's like that little ounce of humility, to know my strengths, my weaknesses, to, ask for help, to just really
Yeah,
see myself in the right lens, in the right
right,
perspective. It's like the
right.
humility piece it's the one piece I forget a lot. And it's the one piece that really can put me in touch with self,
Right,
which, and then it puts me in like correct proportion to the rest. I really love being in a partnership with my husband. Uh,
right.
he's really supportive, but I also call on, my aunts or my cousins or my mom
Yeah,
or different, that connectivity, just to even just say what I'm experiencing instead of keeping it bottled up. Because you mentioned drugs or sex, but there's a lot to be said for how I use denial or disassociation or like disconnectivity, or like
sure.
I automatically will compartmentalize, and denial is something I've been using since I was a child, to
Yeah, sure.
compartmentalize different things and disassociate. So, man, before I used any of the sex or the drugs, I used denial and just put my head in the sand, and whatever it was at the time, right? Maybe TV or something.
Right, right, right.
Music.
Anything mood altering, habit forming with negative consequences. Anything. Yeah.
And ordinary people experience that aren't that don't have the disease of addiction, that don't suffer from alcoholism or you know, experiencing mental illnesses and things. Ordinary people do this.
Right, right. You know, I think that there was a period in my life where my emotional life was so chaotic that I didn't really like thinking, because thinking brought up feelings, and I was really trying to suppress that. And that was the basis of me acting in the ways that I did. But once I got to a different place in life, I was able to like reoccupy myself again. And I like thinking. And one thing that I really enjoy is thinking with other people. That's the reason why I invited you guys, right? I want to think about this question with you, because I think we're doing a good job of talking about this shit tonight, right? You guys are good enough adults. You've been doing the damn thing, right? So I wanted to think with you, right? And talk to you. That's why you're in my life. This is a completely different life I got now. I was born into a family that was a crapshoot. But this life, I only got people in it that I want. You guys are here for a reason. That makes life enjoyable, right?
Definitely.
So that's a survival skill. I don't know every damn thing. I don't have to know everything. I just need to know somebody. You know, I was a firstborn, right? So I had
Yeah.
a certain amount of stress as being a firstborn. I had to do everything. Nobody was helping me. I had to figure this shit out on my own. I was furious. Didn't have any uncles or cousins or grandmother around or anybody to help me. Then when I came into recovery, now I got people. I can just vicariously look at what you guys are doing and figure out if I want to do that or not. Right? That's stress relieving. That's a problem solving skill. Um, yeah, it's essential skills for adulthood: critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, and adaptability. Right? I got to be flexible now. The most flexible person wins. And just because I'm flexible, you know, like in a marriage is funny, right? My marriage is a democracy. I don't get what I want, right? I get what I can live with. And it works pretty damn good. What's good for the group is usually good for the individual. Now, we don't hear that in our society, right? We hear about these millionaires and billionaires, these self-made men and these talented 10. But really, we need to get back to, I think, I work best in a democracy where I'm solving problems collaboratively with the people that I'm in the group with, right? Because I've been in situations where I was right about something and the group just decided they wanted to do something else. And I didn't die. I was okay. But my jaws were hard, but I was okay. All right, so what about and we coming to a close, but I just want to get you guys' thoughts on this one. What about embracing change and continual growth, right? Share your perspective on like adulthood in this modern era, right? Now, let's bring it all the way up current, like right now, what's going on with adulthood in your life? Like lifelong learning, personal growth, adaptability, embracing change, and navigating adulthood right now. We could also throw in like technology. How is technology changing adulthood? Uh, uh, Changing social norms and uh, evolving expectations. Right. This is an exciting time right now. What you guys think about that, being an adult right now? This is the most fun I ever had being an adult right now. I've never been as good an adult as I am right now.
You know, I feel the same, Gerald, and you guys were talking about travel and experiences and different things, and that's how we live our life as well, Brandon and I. And I will say that more has been revealed. You know, last week I had some epiphanies and moments of clarity where more healing needs to take place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it's the inner child or what have you, it's just Lisa as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Needs more healing. So with that, there's more responsibility. So, but also it gets better. I'm 46 years old. I've never had as much as an abundance as I have right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about just the financial, because that's wonderful too. And but the security, the peace, the know of what works and what doesn't, but also like the willingness to keep learning. And I mean, I don't say all that lightly. Like I'm really for real. And week I had a situation happen, two situations happened with both my parents, and it really woke up the need for more healing.
Mm-hmm.
And so like sometimes I work on some stuff and then it comes back, and more has been revealed of what needs to take place. And I'm open to therapy in that realm, which I've never been open for. And it was just like one day I just said, I'm going to do this. And it was like, why haven't I done it sooner? And not to beat myself up, but just like, wow, why did it take so long? But it took what it took. I already told you I'm a late bloomer, but I'm ready for more healing. And that's what adulthood is for me right now. Like I've accomplished, in June, I hit this financial goal, and I patted myself on the back, and okay, now it's time to make a new one. Well, I haven't yet. I'm still basking in that, and just, and making that all for real. Because if I don't celebrate those little wins with myself and just live in those and the joy of it, about a year and some months ago, somebody came back into my life that I had never known, but I knew, for a short time. And there was a lot of joy in that. And it's a personal joy, and it's something so personal. I used to live out loud. Like I used to live out loud as far as like, you would know my joys. And there's so much more. I'm getting so rewarded in the personal joys and keeping them private, court knows and things like that. But like, I guess for the adult and the technology, like all that, it's all overrated for me, man. I'm so simple. I just want, why? Because I'm so literal and practical in some ways with different things. Like even my car, I have an older car, because the newer stuff that I get, I found out all those sensors and stuff make the shit break down, and then I got to pay for, it's all like, it all comes down to, it's good. I got my little, my little AirPods and my, different things. Like I even have the old AirPods. To me, it's overrated. I'm more of a simplistic type of person. And so the adulthood now is just like, it's the greatest it's ever been, man. I'm the happiest I've ever been. It just gets better. Getting older gets better. Like I wish I could freeze time like right now, And you couldn't pay me to go back to my 20s. You could not pay me,
What you think, Corinne?
I mean, that pretty much what Lisa just said sums it up, man. I mean, and I guess that's a good place to be when, you right where you want to be, and you don't want to be anywhere else, and I mean, just being in the moment, and just, man, because, God, I couldn't imagine. I would love to be younger, but I don't want to be the young fool that I was,
Without the foolishness, you take the age difference without the foolishness.
Yeah, if that were possible, that would be great. But we know that it doesn't work that way. But yeah, I mean, technology. I mean, I'm a simple person, The technology is great and everything, but I don't need it.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
it's like I'm not the most technically savvy person. I'm not driven by what new device or anything came out that what's new or anything like that. I'm a more of a people person,
Mhm. Mhm.
and
Mhm.
that relationships kind of trump everything.
Mhm.
For me,
Mhm.
I mean that is where I get all of the value out of my life.
Mm.
That's the greatest value I get is from my relationships, and I have long lasting relationships with people, and the people that are in my life, and I'll take this from you, Gerald, are curated. You know, the
Right.
people in my life, they are curated, and nobody is in my life that I don't want to be.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
and that in and of itself is powerful. Because
Mhm.
that means that yeah, because it wasn't always like that.
Right.
Wasn't always like that, and to be at a point where you get to make the decisions. That's powerful.
Mhm.
To
Mhm.
me, it really is.
So what I'm hearing you guys say is that we often think that success is money. And success, to a certain degree, that's one dimension of success, but it certainly isn't the only dimension, right? Good money, good relationships, creative freedom, life energy, right? Um, Feeling like you want to get up in the morning and do something, right? All those things are aspects of success, right? And um, it's just I think that's a sign of maturity when you realize that maturity is not just one thing, or success is not just one thing. It's a bunch of different things, you know. Um, yeah, this, like I'm a little older, right? And so I'm, hey man, the sun is setting, right? So I gotta like really try to live now. I got sense enough to know that I gotta really, try to enjoy myself right now. Try to really do some things right now. If not now, when? And I live on technology, but I also think relationships and connections are important. This is all we're gonna have, right? There's coming a point where these computers are going to be way more intelligent than we are. We're not going to even know how they operate. And and the only thing we're going to have is our connections to each other, right? And so I'm glad that people help me figure out what's important, right? Because I didn't know what was important. I thought I knew what was important, but people help me figure out what's really important. That's the big problem I have. I can think anything is important, but then I need help figuring out, well, what's the right thing to have be important? And that I had to learn from somebody else. So yeah. Um, you guys, so how you guys feel about this conversation? You think we took care of business? You think people looking at this and have an idea what they need to work on?
Little bit, little bit,
Yeah. I
tiny
think you
bit.
did. I think you guys did a good job, man, talking about it. You certainly answered the questions that I had, you know. And I think there's somebody probably that's going to see this that hasn't thought about half the stuff that we talked about tonight, and they might be a little bit better off, right? They might consider some things differently, and that's all I really wanted to do, right? With my friends, with some people that I think are pretty good adults, right? And I don't think we have to be perfect adults. I think we got to be good enough adults. And you guys are both good enough,
Hey.
right? So anybody want to say anything else before we go? Well, this is live, so you'll be able to see it and refer people over to it. Anybody struggling with adulthood and maturity, just say, hey, stop over there and take a peek. All right. So thank you guys, huh?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good night.
Okay,
Thanks.
guys.
All right.